Hello and welcome. I'm Chris at Pulsar, and today we're going to be taking a look at Primavera, our new vintage spring reverberation plugin. It includes 6 different types of spring reverbs, and we're going to spend this video diving through all the features available in it. So what makes this plugin different to other plugins, you might ask? Normally reverb plugins tend to be sampled, so they'll capture using an impulse response the sound of a reverb unit. Whereas this, we're actually modeling the spring reverb unit, which actually allows us to manipulate some of the physical aspects of it, such as the spring tension and excitation. Now with that all out of the way, let's dive into the plugin and see what we've got in store. Okay, so taking a look at the plugin here, you can see we've got the 6 different types of reverberation units at the bottom, as well as all of our controls. If we look at the plugin from left to right, you can see we start off with this preamp section, which allows you to add a bit of drive, whether it's a tube or germanium style drive. We've also got a filter, high pass and a low pass. Next, we have the main reverb controls, which include our 6 different types of reverb, as well as our pre-delay, the tension of the springs, the decay time, excitation, as well as width. We'll be diving into what each of these controls do throughout the video. And then lastly, in the output section, we have the ducking, mix, presence, and overall volume. So most people might relate using a spring reverb on something like a guitar amp. In this case, I've got my guitar plugged into the computer. I'm just using an amp sim for the time being. But let's actually give a listen to the plugin and see what kind of sounds we can get from this. I'm just going to start with the dry sound, and then we'll turn on the plugin. So this is just the default preset. As you can tell, sounds pretty pristine right out the box. So we're starting on the hi-fi side with the GBS. This is definitely the most pristine sounding spring reverb. Let's work backwards until we get into lo-fi and see what the rest sound like. So as you can tell, they all sound pretty different from each other. Either way, they all sound really nice. I'm really enjoying the sounds of them. So with that in mind, I'm just going to quickly flick back to GBS and let's check out some of the other parameters available. Our main parameter being the decay. This is the length of the reverb. Just going to keep that at 5 for the time being. So our next 2 beside that are tension and excitation. Now, what do these do exactly? So let's start with excitation. I like to look at this as almost how much boing you get from the spring, this kind of sound. Right? So if I just play normally, that's with the excitation on 0. If I put that to 10, right, so you start to get a lot more response from the actual springs. I'm going to put this back to 0. You might notice that some of the other spring units available actually have more of this characteristic even with the excitation at 0. So for example, HR12. You can hear a bit of that repeating boingy sound, but if I turn this up, it's emphasized a lot more. And so to the left of decay, we have the tension. So the tension is in relation to how tight the physical springs are on the unit. When you have it more to the left, it's a lower tension or a looser tension, and then on the right, it's a tighter tension. And the difference is when it's tighter, you have more high frequencies, and when it's looser, you have more dark frequencies. It's a bit flappier reverb sound. So the best way to hear this is if I put the mix onto full wet, so you're only hearing the reverb. And if I pull the tension all the way down to 0, you'll hear it will be a bit darker. And if I push it to 10, it will be a bit brighter. So I like to use this almost as a different type of EQ. You will get a little bit of characteristic change between how tight or loose the reverb will respond. But I find I will use it in conjunction with the filters almost to create a bit of a tone control for the reverb. So I may have it a bit more on the darker side, for example. And then if maybe I've got too much low end, I might just filter a bit of that out. Or maybe the top end is a bit too boingy. Helps clear that up. Next we have the width control. This is basically, as it states, it's how wide or narrow your reverb is. Right now it's on full, so we have a full stereo reverb, whereas if I bring this to 0, it becomes mono. You can only hear it down the middle. Bear in mind, all of these reverb modules are stereo and have a bit of width, with an exception made for the twang module, which you see as you click, this mono light will turn on. And that's because it's based on an American tube amp, where most of these amps tend to have a mono spring reverb in them. So naturally, this is the only one which the width control won't actually make a difference. Okay, I'm quickly going to change over to the piano and we'll try some piano and synth sounds and see how this fits in with that. So this is our dry piano sound. Dry as a bone. Let's turn on the Primavera, and this is again on the default preset. Adding a really lovely space to that. Let's try out another spring reverb and see what this sounds like. I'm going to try Tubby. I'm going to pull that mix down slightly. Adding a really lovely room to this piano sound. If I pull the decay back, maybe we can make it a bit more of a tighter room sound. And I'm going to try the RE201. Really nice, but it does feel a bit dark. I could always opt for another reverb module, or I have the presence control here, which will add a little bit of brightness to that reverb sound. So with the presence on full, I'll pull it back. So you can tell it's adding literally a nice little bit of presence to this. Okay, so next I'm going to try out one of the synths I have here. I've got the Micro Korg at the bottom and the Yamaha Reface on top. I'm going to start with the Micro Korg. I've got this lovely little patch here. No reverb on it. Let's turn it on and see what it adds. Got it set on the RE201. I'm going to change it to the HR12. This one I find has a very bright sound. This will be a really good opportunity to experiment with the drive sound. I love adding a bit of drive to synthesizers. What I really like about this feature in particular is that it's actually driving the dry sound going into the plugin. So right now I've got the mix set to 0. And if I start to drive the preamp, you can hear it's driving without having any reverb on the end. Right now I've got it set to Germanium. I'm going to put it onto Tube. Really lovely, and it's not super harsh either. I find the difference between the Tube and the Germanium is the Tube is a lot smoother in terms of saturation. The Germanium, you get a little bit more high-end frequency from it, a little bit more in your face. If we combine those with the reverb, we get a lovely warmth. Try the Tube. We're going to try the same on the reface. I just have a standard sawtooth patch. If I turn this on, let's try the twang. Okay, so moving on, I just want to show you how this sounds on drums because I'm really enjoying the room vibe it adds to, I mean, any sound really, but in particular drums, it does sound really nice. So these are the drums we're working with. Let's add Primavera. Can also add a bit of drive to this. Maybe even a bit of pre-delay just to delay when that reverb starts. Pull that tension back, make it a bit darker. If you want more of that boing sound, add some more excitation. Pull that decay back, make it a bit shorter. Really lush. I'd love to try it on the twang reverb and see how that sounds. Super dark, very mono. And last but not least, I'm going to end by trying this out on some vocals. Let's see how it sounds. Okay, I've got a new session open. This is a song called If It Was Up To Me, the acoustic version for an artist called Holmes. And this is his dry vocal.
5:30, I'm on your mind again.
Let's chuck Primavera on there.
5:30, I'm on your mind again.
Super lush. It's adding a really lovely space to his voice. But this brings me to the next topic I wanted to speak about, which is ducking. So ducking is basically when the reverb gets compressed by the dry signal so that when whatever is coming through, in this case the vocal, there isn't as much reverb, and then when the vocal stops, the reverb comes out. And it sounds something like this.
5:30, I'm on your mind again.
If I have a slightly longer tail.
Vacant stares and empty words have brought you here.
You can hear that reverb blooms up and becomes a lot more apparent when the singer stops singing. Whereas if I had this long reverb with the ducking on 0,
5:30, I'm on your mind again.
almost becomes a bit hidden, a bit too tucked away. I can, however, use a combination of the pre-delay and the ducking to help push the reverb a bit further back into its own space, have the vocal a bit more up in front in your face. Maybe something a little like this.
5:30, I'm on your mind again.
Let's try another reverb as well.
Vacant stares and empty words have brought you here.
202.
Taken by surprise, so slip between the lines. No, you didn't see it.
Maybe the 201.
Definitely didn't mean it.
Whilst we're here, I might quickly try out a preset. As you can see on the top here, we've got plenty of presets to pick from. There's a folder for vocals. I'm going to start with the airy springs and see how that sounds.
5:30, I'm on your mind kept.
Nice, let's try out the next one.
Vacant stares and empty words have brought you here. Taken by surprise, so slip between the lines. No, you didn't see it. Definitely didn't mean it.
I love how they've utilized this preset as a fully wet effect where they've got the mix on 100% and then adding a little bit of drive using the filter and creating this megaphone spring reverb.
5:30, I'm on your mind, kept.
Sounding really cool. So there you go, that's the whole plugin. Some lost features I'd like to touch up on is obviously on the top where you've got the presets, you've got your save as button where you can save some of your own presets. You have an A and a B section where you can flick between two different presets and see which is your favorite. You also have an external sidechain button. So if you want to sidechain a reverb, say you've got this on a parallel send, you have your key input, whether it's on Pro Tools or Logic or Ableton, you can set the sidechain input and then click this and that will activate it being sidechained from an external source. If you click on the three dots over here, you've got your oversampling where you can pick up to 8 times oversampling, as well as having access to online support, the website and the user manuals. And then lastly, obviously, if you need any volume compensation for this whole plugin, you've got the volume control right here, which is a master volume control. But that's it. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a comment in the comment section below. We'd love to know what you guys thought about this plugin. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe and stay tuned for more from us at Pulsar.